The sunlight poured in through the tall, arched windows of the Fairfax estate, bathing the dining room in a warm golden hue. The table was set with delicate china, gleaming silverware, and an absurd number of napkin rings. Janelle Carter, in a soft beige dress and heels that pinched just a little too much, sat at the far end of the table, smiling politely while trying to ignore the tight knot forming in her stomach. It was her first official brunch as Marcus's fiancée, a title that still felt borrowed. He was beside her, holding court with his booming voice, laughing with his mother Clarice and his sister Brielle, as if nothing in the world had ever gone wrong in their perfectly curated lives. Brielle reached across the table, her manicure as sharp as her smile, and slid a tall glass of orange juice toward Janelle. "Fresh squeezed. Just for you," she said. Her tone was sweet, but her eyes were anything but. "Thanks," Janelle replied, her voice steady. She picked up the glass and took a sip. Metal, bitter. Her lips barely closed around the swallow before something coiled in her gut. She blinked, tried to hide the reaction. Maybe it was just off. Maybe it had been left out too long. Maybe... Brielle was watching her. Not casually. Not the way someone glances. No, this was different. Calculated. Cold. A flicker of something passed through her expression. Triumph? Amusement? Janelle's fingers tightened around the glass. The chatter around the table continued. Clarice talking about some foundation gala. Marcus rambling about a new property in Midtown. But Janelle wasn't listening. She was scanning, watching, listening between the words. Quietly, she stood and murmured, "Excuse me, just need the restroom." She slipped through the hallway, turned into the kitchen and paused. Her heart was pounding. Her hand trembled slightly as she set the glass down on the counter. Was she overthinking? Being paranoid? She opened the cabinet, pulled down a fresh glass, poured juice from the same pitcher, and carried it back with her. But this time, she held both. At the table, as Brielle turned to speak to Marcus, Janelle casually leaned down, her hair covering her movements, and switched their glasses. No one noticed, or so she thought. It took less than 2 minutes. Brielle took a big sip, then another. Her face twitched. Then she started to cough. Not just a clearing throat cough, a deep, violent one, as if her throat had suddenly turned against her. Her hands gripped the table, knocking over a fork. Clarice gasped. Marcus jumped up. "Brielle!" Brielle stood, wobbling slightly, hand clutched to her stomach. I don't feel... She bolted from the room, nearly stumbling as she ran. Janelle didn't move. Everyone else did. Clarice followed. Marcus ran after. The house stirred into chaos. Voices rose. Janelle sat, stone still, hands folded in her lap. Her heart was hammering now, but her face showed none of it. She looked down at the untouched glass in front of her, the one meant for her. She finally understood. Something was very wrong in this family, and someone had just tried to warn her the hard way. Janelle Carter had always known how to carry herself. When you grow up watching your mother stretch every dollar and never take a day off, you learn early how to work hard, smile through discomfort, and make yourself small in spaces that weren't made for you. She wasn't bitter about her past, not even a little. Her mother had done everything she could, and Janelle admired her for it. She just promised herself that her future would look different, and it did, for a while. She met Marcus at a charity gala the hospital hosted to raise funds for their new cardiac wing. Janelle had been invited by a senior nurse who adored her. She didn't even want to go. She didn't own a proper gown and had to borrow heels a size too small. But Marcus had noticed her across the room. Tall, confident, impeccably dressed. He exuded the kind of wealth and charm that could silence any room. He made her feel seen, not just looked at, seen. That night, he asked her what made her heart beat faster. When she said, "Saving people," he smiled and said, "I like fixing things too. Maybe we're not so different." 3 months later, she was swept into a life she'd only ever watched from a distance. Expensive dinners, spontaneous getaways, designer gifts. He introduced her to his world like she was a trophy he'd won, one he was proud to show off, but not quite ready to hand a key to. Still, she fell for him, but then the shine wore off. It started small. He told her he didn't like the way her scrubs looked on her when she stopped by his office. Too clingy. People look. Then he accidentally read her texts. "Why does your coworker Tamika call you babe? That's inappropriate." Then the app showed up on her phone, the location tracker she didn't remember installing. He said it was for emergencies. She believed him, at first. His family was no better. From the first time she met Clarice, stiff pearls, tighter smile, She felt the subtle rejection. Clarice never said anything cruel, but her tone was laced with a quiet insult that always sat under her tongue. Oh, a nurse. That's sweet. Marcus always did have a thing for charity cases. Brielle was more obvious. Disdainful stares, whispering across the room, passive-aggressive digs like, "You're pretty," in a soft sort of way, or, "It must be fun not having to worry about legacy and status." Janelle tried. God, she tried. She brought homemade dishes to family events, complimented Clarice's antique collection, laughed at Brielle's dry jokes, volunteered to help with cleanup, even when her feet ached and her back throbbed from a 12-hour shift. She smiled when she didn't want to. She nodded when she wanted to scream, because she thought if she just tried hard enough, she could belong, that she could become one of them. But at home, things got worse. Marcus didn't like when she stayed late at the hospital. He didn't like her nurse friends. He didn't like her budget notebook, or the fact that she still refused to use his credit cards. "You're marrying into something real, Janelle," he'd said once. "Stop acting like you have something to prove." The worst part? She started to believe him, until she stopped. Her only escape became her journal, the one place where she didn't filter her thoughts or soften the edges of her truth. She wrote about the way Marcus made her feel small, the way Clarice looked at her like a stain on the carpet, the way Brielle smiled when no one else was watching. She wrote about feeling like a guest in her own life. That morning, getting ready for brunch, she had told herself maybe things would shift. Maybe the engagement ring would soften Clarice's glare. Maybe Brielle would be civil. Maybe Marcus would hold her hand in a way that felt like love again, not possession. She put on her soft beige dress. Clarice said muted tones were more elegant. She tied her curls back. She wore the necklace Marcus gave her, even though it made her throat itch. She showed up with the hope that maybe this time would be different. But when the juice touched her lips and left that bitter, metallic warning behind, when Brielle smirked as if she were waiting for something, Janelle understood. This wasn't brunch. This wasn't family. It was a performance, and she was no longer willing to play her part. The house was silent again. Clarice had taken Brielle to the hospital, fussing over her like the good southern matriarch she played in public. Marcus stayed behind to clean up, slamming dishes a little louder than necessary. Janelle sat on the edge of the couch, legs crossed tightly, fingers gripping her phone, not texting, not scrolling, just holding, steadying. When he finally walked into the living room, drying his hands on a monogrammed towel, she looked up. "Marcus," she said, voice calm, too calm. He didn't meet her eyes. "She's going to be fine. Doctor said it was probably shellfish. Brielle's allergic." She forgot to mention it. Janelle raised an eyebrow. "She drank orange juice, not shrimp bisque." Marcus waved a hand. "You're blowing this out of proportion. She had a reaction, that's it." "I tasted it first," she said, standing now. "It was off. I swapped our glasses. And then she got sick. Don't tell me it's nothing." That made him stop. For a beat, his jaw clenched and something flickered in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced with the soft, polished tone he always used when managing a problem. "Babe, don't do this. You're tired. You've been anxious about the brunch. I get it. But don't start imagining things. You'll make it awkward with the family." "I'm not imagining things," she said flatly. "You want to embarrass me over this?" he snapped. "Over a damn glass of juice." That was new. The bite in his tone, the bare edge of anger that didn't bother with charm. She stepped back. "I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. I'm trying to understand what just happened, and why your sister keeps looking at me like she wants me gone." Marcus scoffed. "Maybe she does. You're not exactly easy to like." The words hit her harder than she expected. She didn't reply, just nodded. Quietly walked to the guest room they were staying in for the weekend, closed the door, locked it. That night, the silence pressed down like weight. When she went to brush her teeth, she noticed it immediately. Her toothbrush had been replaced. Same color, same brand, but new, unused. Her old one was gone. No explanation. Her eyes darted to the sink, then the counter, her bag. She rifled through it. Her journal wasn't there. She checked again, under the bed, in her suitcase. Nothing. Her chest tightened. The next moment her phone buzzed, a number she didn't recognize. No name, no history. Just one message: "Leave while you still can." Her fingers trembled. She locked the phone, then unlocked it again. The message was still there. Grabbing her coat, she stepped out into the driveway, her breath visible in the cold evening air. She walked to her car. The tires, all four, were slashed. Clean, straight cuts. Not the work of a nail or bad luck. This was deliberate. She backed away slowly. Her body felt like it didn't belong to her. In the privacy of the house again, she called the only person she trusted. Tamara, she whispered, trying not to cry. Something's not right. Tamara's voice was instant, steady. Where are you? At Marcus's parents' house. Something happened today. I think someone, Brielle, tried to poison me. What? I swapped the juice. She got sick. Now my journal's missing. My toothbrush is replaced, and someone just slashed my tires. A pause. Then Tamara said quietly but firmly, Janelle, this isn't love. This is control. You need to get out, safely, and you need to start documenting everything. From now on, assume you're being watched, heard, stay calm, but do not let your guard down. Janelle closed her eyes. The tightness in her chest released just enough for her to breathe. Okay, she whispered. The next morning, while Marcus was in the shower, she installed a recording app on her phone and tucked it beneath the bed frame. Later that evening, she ordered a small, wireless mic. She sewed it into a decorative pillow on their bed. Every move from now on had to be careful, calculated. She wasn't playing games anymore. She was collecting proof. The gift arrived 2 days later, wrapped in white satin paper and tied with a gold ribbon. There was no card, just a small handwritten note tucked under the bow. Let's start over. B. Janelle stared at the box, her fingers hesitating before lifting the lid. Inside was a velvet necklace case. When she opened it, a delicate gold chain with a small diamond pendant sparkled in the light. Expensive, elegant, cold. She almost laughed. Brielle hadn't said a word to her since the brunch. No apology, no explanation. And now, this. Her eyes narrowed. Something about it felt off. She turned the pendant over slowly and noticed a tiny seam along the edge, barely visible. Suspicion stirred. She slipped the necklace into a plastic bag and placed it inside her drawer, untouched. That night, she called Tamara. She sent me jewelry. It's not a peace offering. Something's embedded in it. I'm sure of it. Tamara sighed on the other end of the line. You're not crazy, Janelle. These people are dangerous. I'm bringing someone in. The next morning, Tamara introduced her to Eric, a quiet, serious man with tired eyes and a background in cyber forensics. At a small cafe across town, Eric took the necklace apart with surgeon-like precision. Inside the charm was a GPS chip, active and pinging. They're tracking you, Eric said grimly. Probably linked to Marcus's phone. We need access to his device. Janelle nodded. I'll get it. That night, while Marcus slept, she slid his phone from the nightstand. The new mic she had sewn into the pillow picked up the faint sound of his snoring, which helped calm her as she copied the phone's contents to the drive Eric gave her. Contacts, messages, hidden folders, everything. By morning, Eric had gone through the data, and what he found nearly made Janelle's knees buckle. Her name's Ariel, lives in Charlotte, Eric explained. They've been emailing for months. He told her he was single, even sent her photos of an engagement ring. Same model he gave you, by the way. Janelle sat frozen in the cafe booth, listening as Eric laid it all out. Marcus was planning to propose to Ariel. He had already created a false identity, Mark Bailey, complete with social media accounts and fake business listings, and it wasn't the first time. This guy's running a long con, Eric said. He isolates successful women, love bombs them, then drains them. I cross-checked some data with Tamara. There were 2 other women before you. Both took out loans with him. Both vanished from the public eye. And his family. Eric paused. Clarice and Brielle. They're part of it. They're listed as consultants in every fake business Marcus registers. Shell companies, tax shelters, the kind you use to clean money. Brielle communicates through burner phones. Clarice handles most of the financials. Janelle felt sick. Her breath came in shallow, clipped bursts. They poisoned them, she whispered. They erased them. She didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, she folded her hands together and whispered, okay, because now she knew what she was up against. When she checked her bank account later that night, she saw the signs, transfers she hadn't authorized, credit card applications she didn't remember filing. Marcus had been using her information to float his schemes, and she had no doubt the endgame was to leave her empty, discredited, forgotten. But Janelle wasn't the same woman who arrived at that brunch. She went about her days with calm grace, kissed Marcus good morning, played the sweet, understanding fiancé, let Clarice talk down to her, Let Brielle watch her with those cruel, calculating eyes. But behind her stillness, a storm was gathering. She photographed every document, forwarded every transaction to Tamara, installed 2 hidden cameras in her room, 1 in the hallway. She changed her passwords, hid copies of her passport and ID with a neighbor, and she kept recording. One night, while folding laundry, Brielle leaned against her doorway. "You're quiet lately," she said, smirking. Janelle smiled, folding a shirt. "Maybe I'm just tired." Brielle stepped in closer. "You should be. It's exhausting, isn't it? Pretending you belong." Janelle looked up slowly. "I'm not pretending. You're not like us. You never will be. You're disposable, Janelle. The only reason you're still here is because Marcus thinks you're manageable." "Manageable," Janelle repeated softly, her fingers gripping the edge of the towel. Brielle tilted her head. "But I have to admit, you lasted longer than the others. I didn't expect you to be this smart." Janelle held her gaze, her face unreadable. The pillow mic recorded every word. "Neither did I," she said quietly. When Brielle walked away, Janelle waited a full minute before collapsing into the chair, her hands shaking. Not with fear, but with clarity. She had them now. Not just suspicion, not just instinct. Proof. This wasn't just emotional abuse. This was criminy. The dining room glowed under the soft golden lights. Candles flickered, casting long shadows over the silverware. A bottle of expensive champagne sat chilling beside the centerpiece. An elaborate bouquet Clarice would have approved of. Everything was perfect, meticulously arranged, elegant, without being showy, just like they liked it. It was a private engagement dinner, or so they thought. Clarice sat at the head of the table in her usual pearls and tailored silk blouse, already sipping her second glass. Brielle scrolled through her phone with a bored expression. Marcus looked proud, smug even, one arm draped possessively around Janelle's shoulders. "You really outdid yourself, babe," he whispered. Janelle smiled. "I wanted tonight to be memorable." He kissed her cheek. She didn't flinch. As they sat to eat, Janelle offered a toast. "To new beginnings," she said, lifting her glass. Everyone echoed, clinking glasses. She let them take a few sips, let them relax into the evening. Then she rose from her seat. "I want to play something," she said calmly, placing her phone on the table and connecting it to the small Bluetooth speaker tucked beneath the centerpiece. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Clarice looked mildly annoyed. Brielle rolled her eyes. Then the recording began. Marcus's voice filled the room, clear, unfiltered. "Janelle is just a pawn. She won't know what hit her until it's too late." The room froze. Clarice's wineglass trembled in her hand. Brielle's fingers stopped tapping her phone. Marcus went pale. "What is this?" he snapped. But Janelle didn't answer. She played the next recording. Brielle's voice, sharp, taunting. "You'll never be one of us. The dose wasn't meant to kill her, just make her sick. I wanted to scare her off." Clarice stood up, nearly knocking over her chair. "Turn that off. How dare you record us?" Janelle turned to her, eyes steady. "How dare you target me?" Marcus lunged for the speaker, but Janelle stepped back. Before he could say another word, a loud knock sounded at the door. Then it swung open. 2 uniformed officers stepped inside, followed by a stern-looking woman in a dark blazer, the district attorney. Tamara stood behind her, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "Marcus Langston, you're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, financial coercion, and attempted poisoning," the DA announced. The room exploded into chaos. "What?" Marcus bellowed. "You can't do this!" Clarice screamed. "You set us up. You did that all by yourself," Janelle interrupted, her voice calm, clear, and deadly quiet. Brielle tried to make a run for the back door, but an officer caught her before she could reach it. "You have no proof," Clarice cried. "I have everything," Janelle replied. "Emails, recordings, bank statements, GPS data, testimony. You underestimated the pawn." Marcus was cuffed, shouting, "You think you won? This won't stick." Janelle walked up to him slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "No, Marcus, I didn't win. I survived. There's a difference." Clarice's face twisted with fury. "You'll pay for this." Janelle stepped closer, looked her straight in the eye and said, "No, I already have. Now it's your turn." The officers led Marcus and Brielle out. Clarice stood frozen, breath shaking, the reality finally sinking in. Her empire of control had just collapsed. The house was quiet again. Tamara stepped forward, handing Janelle a sealed envelope. "We got the warrant for the accounts. The foundation's frozen. They can't touch a cent." Janelle nodded. the emotion threatening to rise, but she held it together. As Tamara left, she looked back once and said, "You did it. You made it out." Janelle looked around the room, now empty, echoing. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply stood tall in the center of the wreckage and breathed. The apartment was small, a third-floor walk-up with creaky wooden floors and mismatched fixtures, but it was hers. No security system she didn't set, no tracking devices hidden in necklaces, no curated dinners to impress people who only wanted to control her, just a quiet place where she could exhale without wondering who was listening. Janelle stood in the center of the unfurnished living room, a single suitcase at her feet. She didn't rush to unpack. She didn't light candles or put on music. She simply stood there, alone and safe. For the first time in months, she slept through the night. Therapy came next, once a week, then twice. She cried the first time she said the word abused out loud, not because it shocked her, but because it finally made everything make sense. Her therapist, a woman named Cassandra with kind eyes and a no-nonsense voice, helped her untangle the guilt that clung like second skin, helped her find her voice again. Not the one shaped for survival, the one shaped for truth. She started journaling again, not just for herself this time, but for others. Late one night, she posted an entry from her old journal on a blog she quietly titled The Quiet Exit. She didn't promote it, didn't link it to her name, just posted it and logged off. Within days, it had over 10,000 views. The comments flooded in, women from all over the country writing, "This is my story. I didn't know until I read this. You gave me language I didn't have." Janelle read each one like a heartbeat, every line a reminder that she hadn't gone through it for nothing. Tamara reached out with an idea. "You should build something real from this," she said. "A space, a platform, a lifeline." And so they did. Together, they registered the Quiet Exit Project, a non-profit that offered legal aid, housing assistance, and emotional support to women leaving toxic and abusive relationships. Tamara handled the legal structure. Janelle focused on outreach and storytelling. They created escape guides, partnered with shelters, and trained volunteers. It wasn't glamorous work. Some days it was heartbreaking, but it was real, and it mattered. Janelle didn't chase love after that. She deleted dating apps, declined setups. She wasn't afraid of relationships, just done needing one to feel whole. What she wanted now was quiet, peace, the kind that lived in long walks, strong coffee, and soft music playing in the background, while she answered emails from women she hadn't met, but somehow already understood. One afternoon, sitting by her window, she opened an envelope addressed to the foundation. Inside was a handwritten note. "I left. I took my son and left. Because of your blog. Because of you. I thought I was weak. But now I know I was just waiting for permission. Thank you for giving it to me." A quiet exit. Reader. Janelle closed her eyes, holding the letter close to her chest. No parade, no applause. Just this moment. It was enough. The apartment was quiet, the city outside humming low with midnight traffic. Janelle sat by the window, legs tucked beneath her, a worn journal resting in her lap. On the side table beside her sat a tall glass of orange juice, freshly squeezed. No additives, no surprises. She stared at it for a moment, the memory flickering in the back of her mind like a ghost she no longer feared. Then slowly, she smiled. She lifted the glass and took a sip. It was sweet, real, safe. For a long while she didn't write, just sat with the silence, letting the moment breathe. Then with a steady hand she opened her journal and wrote, "Sometimes the bitterness is the warning. Trust it. It's not paranoia. It's self-preservation." Her phone buzzed. She glanced down. A message from the Quiet Exit inbox. "I read your story. I think I'm ready to leave. I don't know where to start. Can you help me?" Janelle typed without hesitation. "You're not alone. I'm listening." She hit send and closed her eyes. The world was still uncertain. People still wore masks. Some families still looked like safety until you dared to look closer, but she wasn't afraid anymore. She had chosen truth over illusion, her voice over silence. And as the city lights blinked in the distance, the final words lingered in the air like a quiet anthem. She didn't switch the glass to save her life. She did it to taste the truth, and it was enough to set her free. Hi besties, thank you so much for watching to the end. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe.